Yeah, hi. How do you define affordable housing?
Yeah, so we on the application form, we have questions about the number of units and their affordability levels. And so when you fill out that section of the application, that will give us the information we need. So we're looking at, the total number of units that are affordable to households earning under 50% AMI, between 50 and 80% AMI, and then between 80 and 100% AMI, which is area median income. And we are requiring, you must, in order to be considered baseline affordable, at least 10% of units for households earning up to 80% area median income. But, asking about those lower AMI ranges, because the more lower income populations you're able to serve, the more affordable unit and the higher score.
Katie, we have a few questions in the chat. Rhonda asked, what type of interior improvements are acceptable, sprinkler systems, etc.?
Yes, so that would be acceptable. I think we put in, addition of sprinklers, drywall, restrooms, lighting, electric, paint, floor coverings, anything for interior renovation to complete the conversion, that would be acceptable.
And Christian asked, what's considered residential?
So these would be rental units, long-term rental units, so not short-term rental, and or owner-occupied units.
Spencer, I see your hand up. I can unmute.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. So with respect to the, sounds like we need an external consultant and some other things to be verified. And I'm not super familiar with the but-for clause. Is that to suggest that without this funding we can't do the project? Is that what that means?
Yes, that's correct. That's typical of our incentive programs, like our tax increment financing, other incentives like that. In order to receive a public subsidy, we want to know that this project could move forward but for that subsidy.
Okay, so and I think you'd mentioned 8 to 10% is of the project cost is what you're projecting for the awards. Did I hear that correctly?
That's typical of what our incentives can come in at. However, we have limited funds, and so we're, if projects are able to come through with lower than that, then that's great. We can fund more projects. So I think, we really do want to see in the financial documents what the gap is, and correspond the awards to that versus setting an upfront percentage.
Okay, because I just, I mean, my question is if for instance the project is $1 million and the potential award is $80,000, but the external consultant cost in order to even submit for the project is $20,000 or $30,000, then I guess I'm kind of confused as to how that works.
Maybe you can send us an email with your concerns a little more. I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome.
Then Jay also said in the chat, thanks for the presentation. I understand the timeline as articulated, but affordable housing developments that require a bond allocation will likely require more time to complete than 36 months from initial award. is that completion timeline something we can request within the application with justification?
Yes, that is something that we do ask for any other required approvals and funding sources that are contingent upon this to be specified in the application.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just to kind of provide a little bit of color as to why we've put in the timelines that we have is that, you know, this is money that is from the state. They're putting pressure on us. They want to see this money out and in projects that are shovel ready, that are ready to go. And so I think having those justifications, I mean, that makes sense. So yeah, I think explain that, but ultimately what we want to see is really projects that project readiness criteria. If the project is able to meet the criteria of, okay, we've got a lot of the pieces in place, we're ready to move soon. That's really what we're trying to see.
Next question is, where does hotel usage and or overnight stay fall into the criteria, high or low? Again, referencing priority.
So the highest priority is, of course, residential units. Any type of other activation outside of office, so that would be hotel usage, and entertainment use is also considered to be a priority.
Melvin asked, said we have a building in Smoketown that needs total renovation, 3 apartments and 2 possible businesses. Would that qualify?
So unfortunately, the geographic requirements for the project are the Ohio River to the north, York Street to the south, I-65 to the east, and 10th Street to the west. So as long as if the project were to fall within that boundary, of course, feel free to submit the application, but I don't believe that that is within the geographic boundaries.
And then Ron asked, who do you define as external consultants, like an architect?
So there are firms that provide these kind of economic and fiscal impacts. So I think that's more about what we're looking for is firms who can do that kind of financial and revenue analysis.
Right. That's all the questions I have in the chat. Anybody else have questions? Alex asked if we have a list of consultants we can share.
Yeah, we can circle back on that. Let us touch base internally.
To piggyback off Spencer's questions, if we have to secure an external consultant, which could cost $30,000, would that cost be considered in the reward amount, or would it take away from the award amount? And somebody else wanted to ask what a typical economic analysis costs.
Yeah, so professional services are an eligible expense that can be covered by the funding. So I think, you know, this question around the external economic analysis, if this is a big barrier for lots of folks, or if you're hearing back from people that, you know, the results aren't going to be in time, send us an email about that. It's helpful information for us to know that this is going to be a big barrier for folks to fill this out. But again, we do want to see some evidence of, you know, that positive impact on downtown from, you know, from a verifiable source. So shoot us an email if that's going to be a huge barrier, but because it's good for us to take into consideration.
Will we be, Ramona wants to know if we'll be posting all the Q&As as they come in, and is there a deadline for questions where we'll stop having answering questions?
Yes, I think so. typically, I think we do that about 2 weeks ahead of the application deadline. So that would be on the 27th of January. And we will be posting the FAQs online and continue to update them as they come in.
Desmond asked, what kind of terms can someone typically expect for funding? Are you looking at short-term loans, forgivable loans, grants, or something else? What about repayment periods, interest rates, or conditions tied to the funds?
So this time that is all flexible. The terms of the project awards will be determined per project on a project level basis.
Any other questions?
There's no more questions. Thank you all for attending. It's great to see so many people on this call. There's clearly a lot of interest in this program, which is exciting. So as we shared, continue to email that econdev@louisvilleky.gov email address if other questions come up. And as you mentioned, we will be posting the FAQs online.
I got one question that just came in. If a reward is given and the recipient rejects the payment terms, will that money be offered to the next in line?
Yeah, we will potentially do later funding rounds if the first selected projects don't move forward. Okay.
All right. Looks like we don't have any further questions, so we will work on compiling the FAQs and get those posted back to the Downtown Conversion website.
And just to quickly answer the last question, no, we will not be reimbursing for any costs associated with completing the application. So that is something to keep in mind. If you don't feel as though your application will be a strong one that meets our criteria, that's something to consider before applying. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and good luck on your applications.